the mistake that people often make is they think that they have to agree on one realtor.
Oh, yes.
So very often there's a big fight on who are we going to retain as a couple.
Hi, everyone. It is Shaelene McInnis here with Books in Line, and also, of course, with the Ontario Wellness Network, promoting all things about wellness. As you know, coming out of COVID, I think it was quite a struggle for a lot of people. And so refocusing on wellness, I think, is going to get us past COVID, the pandemic. I'm hoping a little bit faster. I have a great guest with me today. I like what she's going to talk about today, because as I own an accounting company, we do taxes. These kind of the things she's going to speak about today, we see a lot of this, and I would really, really encourage everyone to listen to what she has to say. And if you're happy with what she has to say, absolutely call her. We're going to, of course, include all of her contact information, and she will send it as well. But if anyone doesn't see their contact information on the podcast, you can just give us a call at the office at Books in Line, and we will happily put you in touch with Robyn. So this is Robyn Yack. She's a realtor, and I am going to ask her specifically who her clients are. Hi, Robyn.
Thanks, Shaelene, and thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I'm really excited to share with your listeners the ins and outs of what we do. So I'm a realtor. I work with Forest Hill Vaughan. But our niche is something quite special, and we think it's very important. We help couples going through a separation or divorce sell their matrimonial home. When you sell a home in the best of times, it's a very, very emotional experience, as I'm sure many of your listeners are aware of.
Very stressful.
Exactly. So add to that the whole process of, separating or divorce, and you now have to change your whole lives. If you have children, how is that going to affect them? So there's a lot of things to consider. And most agents, unfortunately, don't know what is involved. It's not as an easy sale as putting a for sale sign on the lawn. There's a lot intricacies, a lot more people to deal with, professionals. Very often you're dealing with the family lawyers, mediators, and arbitrators.
Right.
And we have the experience. We've sat in on mediation and arbitration. We've dealt with family lawyers. I myself have a law background, so that helps as well. So we've really got the gamut of what is involved, and we want to help our clients get to the next phase of their lives.
Right. I'm so glad you're talking about this, because let's be realistic. Half of relationships, I don't like to say the word fail, because it's not, you're success for many years, and then you decided that maybe it was time to move on. So considering that half of relationships, I'll just say relationships, do end up moving on. The people move on to other people, or move on to a different life without that person. So tell me, what is it that you do specifically that, say, just a regular realtor who buys and sells houses, but I like your niche. I'm glad you said it's a niche, but that's a very busy area, and I can see why you'd have to have someone who specializes in what you're talking about. So say when I was separating from my husband, we were going to sell, then what would you recommend specifically for someone like me and my spouse? And why would we come to you rather than, someone who just buys and sells houses? So I'd love to know the difference.
Okay. So first of all, when clients come to us, they very often are not sure, whether they'll be able to work with their ex-spouse. It may or may not be an acrimonious divorce.
Right.
Additionally, they don't know. There's always the thought of, should one of us stay in the house? Do I want to buy the other party out of the house? And how does that work? And even before that, we are very often one of the first people that they contact when they make it's when this starts happening. It's what do we do with the house and what happens with the children? And one of the things
Yes.
that my partner and I want to provide as a service to these people is not only the sale of their house. We want to be able to give them a roadmap and connect them with the professionals that they will need on their road to the other side
Right.
to make it a simple transition. I.e., for example, aside from like a realtor and a mortgage broker that focuses on divorce, someone like yourself, an accountant, a financial advisor, all these professionals that focus mainly on divorce, because it's very different than dealing with just a person who has a cooperative marriage or a single person. When you're going through a divorce, there's different things to consider with respect to your assets and all those things. So we want to be able to provide our clients with the whole gamut of getting them from A to Z. And a lot of realtors don't want to do that. They're in it for the sale and solely
right. Yes, unfortunately, yes, that's true. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, and it's nice because I like to interview people like you who are in it to help people get through a difficult process. Not just, hey, I want to collect my money. I know of, of course, everyone does know of people who list a house for sale way lower than it's actually worth just because they want the payout. Or here's my personal pet peeve: realtors who are representing someone wanting to sell their house, and for pictures they use their cell phone because
God, I agree.
are
Oh my
you
God, that
kidding me?
that infuriates me. This
You
is
know,
like
I
the
agree.
client's biggest asset, and you can't hire a photographer, a professional
Right.
photographer to take their pictures. I totally, totally get
It
it.
is. This is how I feel about this, Robyn. I have a lot of realtors as clients, and I'm happy to have them always, of course. But if I have a realtor who wants to become a client and I checked out, their stuff online and stuff, if they're the person that uses their cell phone to take pictures for the sale of a house, I will not take that person on as a client. And also, I'd never send them a client. Why would I send them someone when they're not representing the client or doing what's best for the client? They're doing what's best for themselves. And it's the same in every industry. I know a lot of investment advisors, they're not in it for the client. Their first priority is themselves. So I'll just go back to that. Sorry, I just went off on a tangent. So can you maybe give us maybe 3 examples, or even people you've represented, but not saying their names, or of course, or anything like that, or stories, where people have made mistakes when they're considering the sale of a house? And then after that, so I don't lose my train of thought, I have a lot of clients that what you said, but should one of us buy the house and stay here and buy the other person out? I have a ton of clients asking those questions all the time, especially in this market. Oh my goodness.
For sure, for sure.
So yeah, some
So some
mistakes people make.
mistakes that clients make.
Mhm.
The first thing that comes to mind is a story I laugh. Is that you've sold the property, so
Mhm.
we're gonna, fast forward,
Right.
and on the moving day, they haven't discussed earlier who's getting what
Oh my goodness.
of the materials in the house.
Oh
So they're on the lawn and they're fighting over the elliptical, or they're fighting
my.
over the bed. You have to, and that's one of the things that we do. We will guide our clients to
Mhm.
make sure that the process that they're taking
Yes.
makes sure that it's a seamless transition, because the
Right.
last thing you want to be doing is fighting on the day of move of who's getting what.
No, no. That's
That's one
okay.
mistake.
So have that figured out beforehand. Is it? That's a really. I never even
For
would have
sure.
thought of that. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
what's another mistake? What's another mistake people
A
are saying?
very key thing, and one of the first things we tell our clients who are going through this is we ask them, do you have a signed separation agreement
Oh yes.
before
Yes.
listing the house? If they don't, we ask them where they're at. Look, we don't need the details of what you're
Right.
over, but the problem is, if on the day of closing they don't have a signed separation agreement,
Uh-huh.
then it's very likely that the proceeds of the sale will not get dispersed to the two owners. They will be held in trust by their lawyers until they can get that sorted out. And that's
Right.
key
Oh,
for anybody selling their house.
of course. Yeah, because yeah, that I wouldn't even have thought of that. So I agree with the signed separation agreement too, of course, being in the field that we're in, where we're doing taxes, like we need to see something in writing with
Mhm.
dates on it and who's going to claim the children and everything else. So that's a very good one. Signed separation agreement was one. Already figured out the division of assets, we'll say, of the
Yeah.
house. And what about the third one? I'm going to throw something out. Do you think each person should have their own representative? Okay,
So,
good. Yeah.
so it's actually, that was going to be my next one. And the mistake that people often make is
Yes.
they think that they have to agree on one realtor.
Oh, yes.
So very often there's a big fight on who are we going to retain as a couple.
Right.
And look, if you're in a if you're both on the same page
Yeah, you're amicable. Yep.
and you're amicable, then fine. I still would suggest you don't use somebody that you know.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
Yes,
oh.
I think first of all, from my own experience, working with people you know is actually the worst thing. I just sold my parents' home and bought them a home, and it was a complete disaster. Okay. Because when you know somebody, you
Yes.
tend to feel like you can take advantage of them. You don't treat them the way you would a stranger. It's just the way
Ah,
it really
yep.
is. And so and especially when you're going through a divorce, amicable or not, we strongly suggest that they use a third party that neither of them
Right.
know, that's because that person will be truly unbiased. If you use
Yes.
somebody that you know
Mm-hmm.
and you're sharing this person, there is
Mm-hmm.
emotions involved. You can't take that away. So
Yeah.
that's number one. But if it's a very acrimonious divorce,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we strongly suggest that each party have their own representation.
Okay.
Because in that case, you know that your best interests are being served.
Right. I
And we
absolutely
actually had
agree.
that. So it's interesting. We had a client who they had a real estate agent that they both used they purchased a lot of properties and
Right.
they had investment properties, and then they got divorced and they tried to use him, but then suddenly the wife, who was our client,
Mm-hmm.
got ahead, right or wrong, that her ex-husband was trying to screw her and was
Mm-hmm.
trying to get people to buy the house on his behalf and regardless.
Right.
And so her family lawyer said to her, "You don't need to both use him. We can recommend
Right.
to you a
Mhm.
lawyer that we know is in this business, will be unbiased, and will do that." And so that's
Mhm.
where we come in.
Right.
And even still, she had this whole concept that he was doing all these, crazy things.
Mhm.
I mean, thankfully, we were able to get through to her, and anyways, we got the property sold. But that's the thing. A lot of people don't know that they're entitled to each have representation.
I've recently seen this situation with one of my clients, and uh, she was saying that she was going with people that neither one of them knew, but she really liked these people. She met them one time and a couple of times, and she said, "Okay, well, let's have these people represent us to sell a very expensive piece of property." And about 2 days later, someone had already come in and said, "I'd like to buy this property for this vast amount of money." And so 2 days later, the soon to be ex husband came home and said, "I've already signed, we're going to go with this person instead, this other person," who turned out to be the buyer's agent. It was the buyer's real estate agent that now this soon to be ex husband signed with. And there was definitely far more going on. That's being investigated now because they know there's much more going on with this than they realized. And
Technically, she would have had to, if they're married, she would have had to
Yes.
sell as well.
Yeah.
So
Yep. No, you're right. So that's what I want to know. Let's talk about that. Let's go right into this. So, what is the difference between being legally married and cohabitating? I'll give you an example. My now husband and I have been together for 17 years, 17 years over. Yeah. And we just legally got married 6 years ago. We decided, yeah, it was time because our girls wanted to be little flower girls. We had a great time. It was wonderful. We went to Iceland and got married. It was absolutely amazing. But so tell me, tell me about that. If it's married, the difference between married and cohabitating.
okay,
So when
so
it
if
comes to
you're married,
yeah.
under the Ontario law,
Mhm.
there is a designation for a matrimonial home. Okay. So the home that you cohabitate in is your matrimonial home. You can, however, have more than one matrimonial home, which is another thing that people don't know. So let's say you have a home in the city and you have a home at a cottage, or you
Yes.
have a condo in Florida. Okay. If you spend a significant amount of time as a family in multiple locations, they would
Right.
all be considered matrimonial homes. Okay. So
Right.
that's number one. The special designation of a matrimonial home is both parties do not have to be on title to the home.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let's say there's a couple and his name is on the property. We actually
Mhm.
have a client right now who's in the process of getting divorced.
Yeah.
He's on title, she is not. Now he could not go ahead and sell the property without her. He needs her spousal consent.
Right.
But
But
the
yeah.
reverse is true too. So he has since disappeared. Okay.
Oh.
She is in the matrimonial home, but she wants to sell the matrimonial home. She too can't sell the matrimonial home without him signing because he's on title. So over the last 2 years, she has spent time in court trying to get a court order to get her approved to dispense with him signing off and providing her the ability to sell the home on her own.
Wow. Wow. I'm just like, wow, that sounds so costly. So if even if only one person's name is on the deed, is that
Yes.
then but you're married,
Yes.
then you
Yes.
both people have to agree on the sale.
And there is a special section
Yeah.
in the agreements, in both agreements, the agreement for representation, as well the listing agreement, as well as the agreement of purchase and sale. There is
Right.
a place where spousal consent must be given.
Right. Wow. Okay.
And if
That
both
sounds
parties are on title, they both have to sign all the documentation.
so in that case, then we'll go to cohabitation. But
Yeah.
in that case, then I'm assuming she's paying all the bills, the mortgage, everything else. So she's paying everything. He's not paying anything. But when they go to do the sale of the home, I guess they'd have to do something with lawyers where she gets back back all this money that she's put in. That sounds very difficult because, of course, the market 2 years ago would have been a lot different than the market today.
Oh, yes.
And I actually have some couples where that's become an issue. One person has moved out, the other person is still in the home, but they're refusing to sell. They refuse to sell, and the other person wants to sell, and they're saying, and the first spouse who's left is wants to sell, and the other one's like, no, I'm not selling it. I'm going to wait till the market goes up. And then you're just sitting there waiting till it goes up. But if the market goes up, then yes, you can get more for the home, but now you're going to pay more when you go to buy something else. So I do have a lot of couples going through something like that. Um, can you tell me about the differences between a married couple and a common law cohabitating kind of couple? What would the difference be there?
So very often people think that after a certain amount of time, and it's 1 year for tax purposes,
Right.
and 3 years for other purposes, that once those deadlines have surpassed, that
Right.
suddenly you have all the same rights as a married couple.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is no designation of matrimonial home under common law. So
Okay.
basically, what happens is you come into the relationship and
Yes.
you keep whatever if you were to separate,
Right.
whatever you had before is yours. So for example, and this, I've just gone through this myself because I
Yeah.
purchased the property with my boyfriend and now we're cohabitating.
Right.
Now so there's two things. One, I would strongly advise that both parties' names go on title.
Yes.
The
Yes.
reason being is then one party can't sell the house without the consent of the other party.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yes.
there's the ability to sell a house out from under somebody if somebody's name is not on title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then there's the other thing, just because both of you are on title
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you own the property 50-50.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So basically, you need to have a cohabitation agreement
Mm-hmm.
that details exactly what the arrangements are. Now, the arrangement could be he put in 80, you put in 20, so it's an 80-20 split.
Right.
It could be that he's put in money, but you're agreeing that the house will be 50-50.
Right.
But if it's not in writing,
Right.
then it basically they'll look at how much you've put into the house.
How much financially you've put into the
Financial
house?
put in, yes. Right?
So
So
sorry, just as an example, say my boyfriend and I, he's got a house. This is obviously before I was married, and
yeah,
I move in with him.
yeah,
We have children. I am the primary caregiver of the children, starting a business, which has
right,
turned out to be amazing
right,
years later. You know,
right.
but so what you're saying is because I didn't contribute financially, really. Wow, we got married. So yeah, that's so if there's two people, if one moves in with the other person, and if both people are not on title and there's not an agreement, then the other person who's not entitled is really entitled to little to nothing unless they've financially contributed. I could see this being a massive, massive problem, especially for anyone who has stayed home and take on the primary caregiver of the children, and that could be man or woman. Yeah, because like take me for example, my husband now has retired and he's primarily taking care of the kids, but pretend we're not married. I'm just saying, like that would be an
And
example of that. That is something people don't
that
know,
house can be sold out from under that person without them knowing.
right? I have heard of a situation. I have a realtor client that I work with, and she told me that um, I don't know if they were married. Maybe that was the thing. Is she said that I think it was a married couple, but the house was only in his name, and he was trying to sell it from under her, and she didn't even know, and they were married.
Right.
So,
Well, that's the thing. It's the realtor's job to, pry to get the information to find out if there is another person, if that
oh,
person's in a relationship, because if they are, then again, you need the spousal consent.
well, say they didn't get it. Say they were married,
Yeah.
and one spouse decided that they were going to sell the house because it was only in their name. Say the house
Right.
is only in their name, but they're married, and the one person tries to sell it from under them. What if it? What would happen? Could they
Well,
do that?
well, legally they can't. So the spouse whose name is nowhere
Hmm.
what would end up happening potentially is that spouse would wake up one day and find, obviously they have to find out that they're moving, right? Because if the house is sold, they're going to have to find that out. And at that point, if that spouse isn't happy about it,
Right.
she or he, whoever it is, could
Hmm.
prevent the sale. And then what would happen is the listing agent could get in trouble for that.
What if the listing agent didn't know? I mean, I'm sure
Oh,
I feel really bad for
they
listing
have to
agents.
show that they had done their due diligence to
Oh,
find out if there was another person involved. This
right.
this man or woman who was on title would really have to have hidden. I mean, you come to the house, usually you see there's some pictures, there's something
that
that,
says, wait a minute. Seems like a lot of pressure on a realtor. Like, I'm sorry, like it's not just buying or selling a house for the realtor. It's a lot more.
well, you
Like
have to
it's,
be, you know what, you really, in any transaction as a
yep,
realtor,
yep.
you really have to be careful,
Mm-hmm.
diligent. You have to put things in writing. You have to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you protect yourself.
Of course. Yes, of course.
And I'm
You'd
sure
be,
you do too,
I was
because
just going to say we have that in common. I was just going to say we have so much of that in common because, of course, we've had clients who, because my business has been running my tax business for over 10 years. So we've seen couples splitting up and we're trying to also give them all the guidelines, okay, who's going to claim the children, is it 50-50? You can claim 1 year, you can claim on the even years, you and the odd years. We're just trying to make sure that they're fully, we want to see the separation agreement. So your business and my business have a lot more in common than I expected, actually. And it's like, okay,
true.
no, put this in writing. And I've said to my own staff, no, just because they said something on the phone, you send them an email saying, I'm confirming that as per our conversation on this date at this time, that this is what's going to
Well,
happen. Yeah,
it's
it's,
funny because we just recently got something totally off topic, but
yeah.
we had an offer date, and we had a client who got an offer, a
Hmm.
preemptive offer, an earlier offer, and
Yes.
they chose not to go with. They didn't want to look at it. They wanted to wait for offer date, and that was in June. And now the house is still sitting, and
Oh,
they're of
no.
course now they're upset, and they just sent to us, you didn't let us look at the offer, and we have it in writing, thank God,
Oh,
where we
oh,
said,
yes.
um,
Oh,
right.
absolutely. Oh, yes, 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 yes.
And I still remember, it was so funny because I remember vividly where I was actually getting at the hairdresser, getting my hair done when we got in this preemptive offer. And I was talking to my business partner, and I did it because I was there for a while, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
sometimes. Anyways, and it was just so funny because my business partner and I were talking, and we're like, okay, we've had this conversation with her.
Oh,
We need to
yes.
protect ourselves, because in case she comes back and says
Right.
we
Hey,
never
you didn't,
presented it, and who would have thought? But thankfully, you have to put everything in writing and protect yourselves in
I
any
completely agree.
professions, in
Yep.
these professions. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. We've had the same situation where, we've done something, we've given advice, we've sent in a tax return, and someone says, well, you never told me this. Actually, here it is. It's in letter of agreement and letter of engagement that you signed. It's highlighted. You had to initial there acknowledging, yeah, it has to be in writing.
I
Absolutely.
get it. Like, now their emotions are high, and
Yeah,
they're
of
so
course.
they don't remember what happened between
Absolutely.
them, and that's
Uh-uh.
fair. I totally get that. But at least
Hmm.
we were able to say to her, here's, we explained it to her,
Yeah.
and we forwarded her the email that we had
Yeah.
sent.
Yeah.
You know,
I
like,
do all that with my staff. It's not just a phone conversation. It has to be a follow up where they've acknowledged something. For example, we can't send in an income tax return without a signed form giving us permission to
right.
e-file. So we've had that cases where people go, well, I didn't tell you to e-file it yet or whatever. And we're like, yeah, you did. You paid the bill. You signed this form, and we keep everything is now online. So,
Right.
but again, emotions are high. You're right. Emotions are high. Thank you. I have to say, this has been so enlightening for me.
There was
I'm
another
going
thing I wanted to chat about, if
to,
you might have forgotten, the whole concept of, do you sell the house, or do you keep somebody, buys somebody out?
yes, yes,
Sorry,
yes,
I
yes.
didn't
No. Please
really
speak
want
to
to
that.
talk
I
about that.
absolutely want to know.
So you know what? We say it's very important to reach out to us, and
Mhm.
let's chat about it. Yes, again, you think that, and it's usually the female who wants to
Mhm.
stay in the house for the kids' sakes, and you
Yes,
actually think it's in the best interest for the children.
they do. Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that people need to consider, and again, they need to, calmer heads, rule. They need to think about the fact that the kids are used to this being a family home. So
Yes, of
so the
course.
first thing is, it might be better for them to move into two separate homes and start two separate new homes,
Yep.
to remove that memory. But
Yes.
but aside from that, in conjunction with your wellness topic, okay,
Yes. Yeah.
people need to remember owning a home and paying for a home is very stressful. You are
Yes.
now, if you're going to maintain the home, you are now going from two incomes to one income. So
Yeah.
you may be able to find support to help you buy the other party out of the home. But
Right.
you now have all the expenses. And we know of people who have gone through this, who have found
Yeah.
somebody to help them purchase the home. But
Yes.
then the day-to-day expenses on the one income
Yes.
has become so much
Yeah.
it overwhelms them
Yes.
that it affects them emotionally, physically. Their wellness is not, it's not in their best interest
Yes. I can
to
see.
stay there. I know when I separated, we sold the house. I went from a 1,700 square foot house to a 900 square foot house.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to purchase, I wanted something, I wanted to take my money.
Right.
And my daughter was young, but then a few years later, I sold it and I built my
Built back up. Right. Built yourself. I have two examples. I currently have a client, and she was adamant that she wanted to keep the house um, with her children. For her children, she wants to have the house because that's where they grew up and everything. And but now they split up a few years ago, but now, and they still haven't sold. But now it's so expensive. The prices have gone up, especially in Durham region. She can't afford to buy him out. And so she's saying, what am I going to do? If I can't do this, I'm going to be homeless with my kids. And I'm like, no, you just need to buy something smaller or outside of Durham region, or it's not that you're going to be homeless. You still have a house because she can't afford now to buy much. She might have been able to before, definitely not now. Prices in Durham region have gone up. That was that one situation. I'm glad that you pointed that out. The kids know that this is the family home, so maybe it's better to do something, and sell that house. I also have a friend who, when her and her husband split up, one partner kept the house, the other person bought another house right in the same neighborhood, like 7 houses down, and so that the kids had two places, and they did that, and they were fine with it for years. So that was not a bad divorce. So
yeah,
yeah,
everybody's divorce is different and you have to, but
exactly.
what we think is important is let's have a discussion and
Yes.
let's make sure you know everything that you can transpire, that
Yeah.
we put it all out there for you because you don't know what you don't know. When
No.
I left my marriage and I was the one who left, I thought I had it all figured out. I think I thought that a week later, after I told him, I'd be standing on the corner of Yonge and Eglinton to go deposit my check because checks were
Yes.
paper.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I went in and looked at the bank account and he hadn't put in his money into our account where the mortgage was going to come out.
Oh.
So you think you know, but you don't know. And that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
We want to be there for our clients so that
Yes.
hopefully we can be with them before and prevent things from happening because we can bring certain things to light that they haven't thought about.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I have this saying that, everyone says, but I think it every day. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Make sure that you can learn and learn and learn, because it helps you become more empowered. The second thing I want to point out is hire the experts. I am not going to ever sell my own house. I'm not ever going to go and buy a house on my own without an expert. I'm like, literally, money on the table. You are leaving money on the table. And it's the same thing in my field. I've had people come in and they think, well, you know what, I'll do all the bookkeeping and the taxes. And then they come to us and we're, okay, first of all, this bookkeeping is wrong, or you've missed out. I had one person who missed out because he was going to do all the taxes, HST, everything. He insisted on being the person to do that. He was not a bookkeeper or accountant, by the way. And he missed out on about $27,000 just on one income tax return and HST because he didn't know what he was doing. Hire the expert. Again, I'm
And
not selling my
also,
own house.
the other thing is, okay, yeah, you're not selling your own house, but again, okay, let's dive even deeper, right? Would you go to a GP, a family doctor, if
Yes.
you have cancer or if you
Right.
have a knee injury? No,
Yes.
you'd go to a specialist. So
Mm.
we think, and we're not saying you have to hire us,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're if you're selling your matrimonial home and you're going through a divorce, don't just use a regular realtor. Use somebody who specializes, who can really guide you through this process.
I think that's such an excellent point. Hire the right expert, right? So I'll have clients who come to us and they'll want maybe a certain kind of tax services that I don't offer. So I'm happy to send them to someone who does specialize in that, like estate planning and stuff like that. That is not my area of expertise. I work with businesses, but I'll send clients to the right person. And I agree, because not all realtors are the same. Like some
Right.
specialize in this, some specialize in this. And of course, the work that you're doing is very specific. I could see why. And you know what? I didn't even know that you could have two realtors representing you and your partner. I think it's been a great podcast, Robyn. I really, really appreciate this discussion. And I'm sure my audience does as well. I have a lot of people to share this podcast with, that's for sure. And everyone, again, if you would like to get hold of Robyn, how can they get hold of you quickly, Robyn, if they wanted to talk to you?
Well, they can check us out on our website. It's
Mm-hmm.
www.robyn with a Y
Mm-hmm.
and spelled out AND Cheryl CHERYL.com,
Mm-hmm.
or on social media on Instagram or Facebook. It's Robyn and Cheryl Real Estate.
Perfect. Robyn and Cheryl Real Estate. Now, we're going to again include all of this with the podcast. If for some reason you don't get hold of Robyn, you are welcome to call Books in Line and we will happily put you in contact with Robyn and Cheryl. Robyn, thank
Can
you
I say one
so
more
much.
thing? I just
Yes,
want to let
please.
people know, your audience know, that we actually do have a very large reach for our
Mhm.
services. So
Yes.
our reach, we go north to Barrie, south to the water, east to Durham, west to Mississauga, Milton, Hamilton, and Waterloo. But
Okay.
the other thing we want to tell you is, if you're outside of our reach, please still
Mhm.
reach out to us. I'll tell you why. We can find you a real estate agent
Yes.
in your area, and we will work alongside that real estate agent to provide them with the guidance that you
Yeah.
need for your divorce.
Okay. That is an excellent point. Thank you. And again, so if you are anywhere in Ontario and you're going through separation and divorce, and you need someone who's a specialist in this area. Absolutely. Robyn, thank you so much for your time. Again, if anyone would like to contact Robyn, she's given the information, and of course you can call Books in Line. Robyn, thank you so much for your time today. It was very, very insightful. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks very much.